All right, folks. So the next order of business is, basically I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do with the old oil filter. Okay. Now, this oil drain itself has a little spot that you can lay the filter on and let it drain out. But what I recommend is also punching a hole in the top edge of the casing if you can, and that allows more oil to get out of it quicker. Most shops have an oil barrel, or their oil recovery company will take the filters in a big barrel and take them away for free. I do recommend, if any shops are around that you work for, invest in an oil filter crusher. A lot of times those work well enough to where you can throw them in a barrel and possibly even throw them in the garbage. But I still recommend having a waste oil company come and get them, because most of them still have quite a bit of oil left in them. Okay, even after that. Okay, so the biggest thing is get this out of your way. Okay, and make sure that you're not tripping over this thing, especially in my garage right now. That's kind of an easy thing to do. Okay. So really we're down to the last step at this point. The last step really is to fill this thing back up with oil. And what else? Okay. We'll talk about the what else's down the road, probably in the next video. But really, with changing oil, the biggest thing is we're going to use a funnel. Okay. But one of the biggest things I recommend people do or don't do, whichever way you want to look at it, okay, is don't get distracted at this point. Okay. If you get distracted at this point, what that means is if you walk away from this truck and then you come back to it, one of two things can be possible. Number one is, the worst one is, you may forget to put oil in it. Okay? The second thing, and it could go out the door that way. Okay? Number two is, if you leave a car with the keys in it and no oil in it, let's say the service advisor comes around the corner and doesn't see you there, and it looks like the truck's all done, it just needs to have the hood closed, and you didn't put oil in it. Okay? This is one of those times where you need to say, whatever else is happening can wait. Okay? This thing needs to get oil put back in it, okay, before you do anything else. Okay? Period, end of story. Around here. Okay. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to use right now is this is what they call basically a stool. But this one I bought years ago, and it actually has a tool tray on it. And this has been a great investment for doing stuff where I need to stand on it. And it gives you a great spot to put tools and that sort of thing. So another thing too that we're going to be going over probably in another video is this. This is what they call a multi-point inspection sheet. And we're actually going to be doing one real time. Okay. And this is going to be a whole nother video just on this, but you folks are going to be doing one of these when you come back in for labs in the summer. Okay? So trust me, you'll be familiar with this sheet before long. Okay? So right now, we'll set that aside, but now we need to pour the new oil back in this thing. I trust me, folks, just use a funnel. Don't try to be a hero and get it in there without one. Majority of the time what ends up happening is you make a mess that you end up having to clean up anyway. Okay, so this engine I know for sure holds 5 quarts of oil, so I'm not going to be bashful here. I'm just going to pour this whole sucker in there. Okay, so like I said, make sure you're not pouring it all over the exhaust manifold, because then that can happen. And make sure you're not pouring more oil in this thing than it can handle in the valve cover. To be honest with you, I've seen them overflow because the oil drain back holes won't take enough. So do be careful with that. Okay, just about got all of it in there. Okay, and like I said, I'm not one to let this thing sit here and drool forever, but if you want to get your money's worth, go for it. But for the most part, we've got the majority of the oils out of it. Okay. So once you're done with that, I'm going to put this funnel back in its little hiding spot here. And I'm going to recycle the bottle as well. Okay. So at this point, you can put the oil cap back on. Okay. And if you're OCD like me, the writing's got to be facing up. So, little funny story for you. Back when I was coming into automotive, when I was your guys' age, I worked for Shucks for a long time, and I actually worked for them when they were called Al's Auto Supply back in the day. And we had one of my managers told me a story about how this person came in asking for 710 fluid. Okay, and you might be asking, okay, what's 710 fluid? Well, all they did was they read 710 engine 710. It's actually engine oil. So anyway, funny story for you. Okay, at this point, let's fire this thing up. Let the oil pressure come up, and that will fill the oil filter, and then we can bring this thing down off of here and off of the ramps and double check the oil level. Okay, make sure you got everything out of the way, and we're just going to bring this thing down right now. Okay, need to watch your oil pressure gauge. This one's broke. Oh, it actually did come up that time. Okay, a little bit anyway. And you're going to back this thing off of the ramps. Okay, nice and slow. Okay. Now, like I said, see the oil pressure gauge is down at 0 again. This is a common problem with these. So my oil pressure switch is no good. Okay. Obviously, at this point, make sure you don't have any leaks. Believe me, you'd be seeing them by now if that was the case. And you want to let this thing sit for, just a couple of minutes. And this is a good time to start filling out your checklist. Filling out your multi-point inspection list. Maybe checking the battery. Okay? But we're getting to the most important part of this whole job. Okay? And that is putting a new oil change sticker in that car. As cars have gotten newer and newer, You know, and as we progressed, you know, down the road, we see these cars in less and less as time goes by. And, you know, there's quite a few car makers out there right now that are making 7,500 to 10,000 mile oil change intervals. And you think about how much time that is in between when you see these cars. Now, is it possible that you may not see this car for a year? And the answer is yes. You know, I do put more miles on my vehicles than that. Usually I'm more closer to 15,000 miles a year. So usually you'll see me, you know, more often than that. And I'll be doing at least, you know, 2 to 3 oil changes during that year on my vehicles. So make sure you fill out the oil change sticker and get it in the window. I do tend to do these the very first time, or when I first get into the rig and pull it into the shop. I'll put those in first, and that way I don't forget about it. Okay? So at this point, all we got to do to finish things up here, okay, so to get us to a spot where we're level. Okay. And yes, I know my old oil dipstick is busted. The end of it's broken off. I do need to get a new one for this because this one is not going to be very accurate the way it's situated. Okay, so you want to pull it all the way out, wipe it off. Oops, sorry, folks. Okay, put it all the way back in, and we're going to check it. Okay. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but we are right about 3/4 of the way up from the add mark to the full mark. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, well, we need to put another 1/4 of a quart in this thing. I would say don't do that. We got a little bit of schmutz on there. Leave this where it's at. This engine calls for 5 quarts during the oil change. I would recommend not putting in any more than that. Reason being is the oil that we just put in is still cold, and it does take quite a while for this stuff to drain back into the engine. Okay, so don't overdo it. Have I had customers come in back in after I've done an oil service on them and said, well, my oil's not full? Absolutely yes. Just make sure that it's within the cross-hatched area or the safe range for the vehicle. Okay. A lot of times the manufacturers set these things up so that when you do an oil service on them, they are not all the way full. They don't want them all the way full because they tend to burn more oil when they're full like that. So put in what the manufacturer suggests. Check it at the end to make sure that it's where it needs to be. Don't just assume. And pretty much that's it. We're done. So I know this has probably been a pretty long video for just an oil change. But as you can see, there's a lot of things that can be goofed up on these, and a lot of things that I wanted to show you to hopefully help you through that. So at the end of this assignment, I will put on the reply button underneath the video, and I want to hear from you folks. Just give me one thing that you got out of this that you didn't know before. Okay, that'd be great. I'll make sure that I set it up so that everybody can see the replies as well. So, all right, take care, folks, and we'll see you next time.